Hello everyone, it's Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Welcome back to my channel. I am here for, I guess, inks 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for my 15 inks over 30 days. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint them into this grid here, and then I'm going to, similar to what I did for day inks 1 through 5, put them in my little grid here, compare all the papers. I will also do an ink splatter in my journal and journal daily there. And then at the end of this round of pen and ink pairings, I will give you my little update on them and what I thought of them, and then I will rank them in order of what I thought of them. Let's get started. So I'll be doing all of my ink swatches in my Galen leather A5 notebook with 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. I will also be doing swatches with my Kakimori brass nib. This is a size B1 nib, and it is on my River City Pen Co nib holder. And I will also do some swatches with my Kakimori brass nib. This is also on a River City Pen Co nib holder. So the first pen and ink pairing here is the Troublemaker Sepia Hour that I just received from a lovely pen friend in my Just Turnings Swirly Joyful Kismet. So this was a custom blank that I had Tim of Turn Pen Co do, and he now actually offers it in his shop. But I love just the fall colors of this, but also just the way that the shimmery silver goes with the pinks and the greens. It's a really, really lovely pen. So let's go ahead and do a quick swatch here of the Troublemaker Sepia Hour, and it goes on this really light, and now I've got some of that like spot of another ink there, which it's okay. And this is such an interesting ink because I just swatched this a few days ago, and it's so interesting in terms of the way that it just turns out. Now I'm going to do the line widths here for the brass nib, and I love the colors of this. It's so light, but you can see the way that it's drying. It's got like browns and yellows and pinks and corals. Really, really interesting color. So I'll just do a quick rating here of the name, and this pen has an just a fine architect nib. So this is Troublemaker, and this is Sepia Hour. So pretty. Please ignore the dot in there. So the next thing I'm gonna do here is actually just take a little bit or a few drops of the Troublemaker Sepia Hour and just put a few drops like this, maybe a couple of drops like that, and a long drop like this. Just a few drops on the page here, because I am then going to swirl them around using a sandwich baggie. Now, with the sandwich bag, I love it because the more wrinkles that the bag has, the more unique the design becomes. And some people love the design with lots of ink. I prefer it with slightly less because, one, it dries faster, and two, sometimes you get more unique effects with less ink rather than just one big blob. And oh, I love that. It's gonna dry so cool. Okay, so on this page I'm going to compare 6 different papers plus swatch on the Tomoe River paper, and I love seeing the different effects that the paper has, or the ink has on the paper, especially when it's a color like this, because I know it's going to be super interesting. Now, somebody asked me, like, which one is your favorite paper out of all of these when you swatch? And I'm like, when I'm swatching, I love the Yamamoto Bank, the Bank, and the Onion Skin papers, like the last 3 here. I love the way that the Speedball nib feels on these, but I also love just how it looks on these papers. I'm going to add a little bit more here so I can get some of that shading. But this one, this ink is a chromo shader, so I know it's gonna look so interesting. And I know I already swatched on the Tomoe River paper, so you might have seen somebody knocked or was here. Somebody knocked on my door and I ended up spilling the ink sample. Thankfully there's still a little bit left, but I got some on there and I managed to get some on here, but I covered that with Tomoe River paper. Oh, that was not fun. And I was a little grumpy after that, so I needed to take a little bit of a break from this. Okay, so real life here. The name of the pen is my Just Turnings, and this is in the Swirly Joyful Kismet. And the reason that I chose that name is because it's basically my initials backwards. And this is in a Fine Architect. I've got to make sure I leave enough space here for the Zentangle. And the ink is Troublemaker Sepia Hour. And I don't know if you can see, but do you see like in the bank, in the Yamamoto bank, like the shades of yellow in here? It looks so different in these two papers. And then just how much more coral it looks on the onion skin, but then it looks really pink on the Regalia and the Cosmo, and then on just the Rhodia it just looks like brown and orange. Really interesting. So here I am, I'm going to measure out my Zentangle using my Michaels ruler that I got 7 or 8 years ago, and then I'm gonna use that again as a straight edge to draw out the diagonal lines, and then from here drawing out the pattern using actually the line variation on the Architect nib. And I really like how this looks. This pen and ink combo is lovely. Very wet in my Fine Architect nib. Not a lot of chromo shading on the Tomoe River paper in the writing sample, but it's still so pretty. I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the pen an 8. So I'm actually really happy with this combination. I mean, the Just Turnings pens are beautiful and they're very well made, but they're like a tad bit too narrow to be comfortable for really long sessions, although I have used this for work today, and I've also journaled with it for 2 days, and I've really liked it. I loved the combination. I thought it was a really good match. So that is my Just Turnings Swirly Joyful Kismet with Troublemaker Sepia Hour. The next pen and ink combination is Robert Oster with the Coffee Monsters Co, and this is Coffee Monster, and it is in my Esterbrook Model J in the Antique Rose. Now I got this sample from Corolla at the San Francisco Pen Show, and I just missed out on the opportunity to buy this ink when Helen released it. So I was so glad to be able to get a sample of this, because I mean, it's brown. It's like a coffee color, and like it's so lovely and like caramelly, and I love that. Then we'll do the different line widths here. Oh, it's just this lovely warm creamy brown, really lovely. And then writing the name here. So this is Robert Oster with Coffee Monsters Co, and it is Coffee Monster. Oh, such a cool looking ink. Okay, so now I'm going to take a few drops of the Robert Oster and Coffee Monsters Co. and just drop a few drops around the page here. Sometimes I like to do like little drops. Oh, what am I doing? And yeah, there we go. And then I'm going to, where's my sandwich baggie? Swirl it around with a sandwich bag, because I love the effect, and I love when there's like little areas like that. It's just so interesting. It's better than a blob. And oh yeah, oh, I love that, seeing the different shading effects of the ink this way. Sometimes it's better to have less ink than more ink. Oh, this one I definitely did not put enough. Oh well, I like it. All right, so I'm gonna take my Speedball B nib here and put a swatch down on these papers. Again, I love seeing how different these come across, because you just think, oh, it's just brown. It's not going to do anything crazy on these papers. And then you see how different it looks on the bank paper or the onion skin paper. And these are the three, the onion skin, the Yamamoto bank, and the bank, that are probably my favorites in terms of the way it looks on the paper and the way that the ink just, there's something about the way that the ink goes on that paper. It's just amazing to me. So then let's close that, because knowing me, I will spill, which I did for the last ink. So the pen we have here is the Esterbrook Model J in the Antique Rose, and this has a fine, no, an EF, extra fine nib, and this has Robert, Oster, and Coffee Monsters Co. Coffee Monster, and it is like the perfect coffee shade. And if we just look at the ink, the way that it's drying, the ink always looks the darkest on the Rhodia paper, but I love the caramel color that's coming out on the Yamamoto bank. It's like the lightest out of all of them. Not a lot of shading on the onion skin, but it's still drying, so we'll see once it's fully dry. Here I am drying out the grid for my Zentangle, and it's actually really fun being able to do these Zentangles on a smaller scale, but I also want to be able to do them on a bigger scale. But for the timeline that I'm working with, these smaller scale ones work really well. For this particular one, I'm working with an extra fine nib, but it feels like the ink is quite wet, so the really fine lines and the detail I want, I'm not getting, or I think I'm adding actually one too many lines, which is why that one pattern in the middle kind of looks like it's all blobbed together. But hey, it's part of experimenting. This was a really lovely combo. This Robert Oster Coffee Monster is a creamy, comforting brown. I don't know how else to describe it. It also flowed really well out of the extra fine nib. So I gave the ink a 10 because it's such a lovely brown. The flow a 10 and the comfort level of the Model J a 10. I was really happy with this combination. Like, this is such a beautiful pen, and it's one of those like classic looking pens, and then this ink just worked so well with it. It's probably one that I would keep inked for longer if I didn't want to keep exploring any more pens and inks. So that is my Esterbrook Model J Antique Rose with Robert Oster and the Coffee Monsters Co. Coffee Monster. The 8th pen and ink pairing is Birmingham Pen Co Root Cellar, and I have it in my Le Bon 325 in Snow. Let's place this here. I'm going to do a swatch with my Speedball B nib, and look at that beautiful yellowy, mustardy, orangey color. So pretty. But also when I put the nib in the water, it turns like this highlighter green. Really interesting. And I think a lot of Birmingham Pen Co inks have that highlighter green yellow as a base. Really lovely, and that's coming off the nib really nicely as well. So let's close that before I make a big mess, because I am known to do that. And this is Birmingham Pen Co Root Cellar. Oh, liking that so far. I'll go ahead and put a few drops of this down on the page, and you can see that there are some inks. Just because like the ink swatch does put down a lot of ink, there are going to be inks that bleed through and shadow a bit, and I'm okay with that. I know there's some people who wouldn't be, but it doesn't bother me too much. And then I will take my sandwich baggie and swirl that around. And what I've been doing with these is also adding stickers on top, so that I'm also using, along with the ink samples, using my stash of stickers. So really trying to work through what I have in my collection. And this ink is going, there's a lot that's going through. Oh, I like that. I really like that color. It's not normally a color that I would have gone with in the past, but I really like that. So spreading some of the root cellar over the papers. Now I've already done this with this ink when I first received it, but I still like to be able to compare it for my 15 inks over the 30 days. I like seeing the effect of this on the different papers and the way that the ink reacts, especially the Birmingham Pen Co inks. I find it really interesting that this ink in particular, when you put it in water, or not when you put it in water, but when you put the nib in water, the water turns this like highlighter green. And from commenters on the channel, a lot of people say that it's really like the base of many of like their browns and their yellows has that kind of highlighter green in it. I love this color, and I'm not seeing a huge difference in all the papers just yet, but it is really, really cool. So, excuse me, the pen that I'm using for this, where is my pencil board here? The pen that I am using is my Le Bon 325 in Snow, and gosh, that extra fine nib is so smooth. And the ink is Birmingham Pen Co Root Cellar. Lovely. So I'm drawing out my, Zentangle, and you can see that I've put a piece of paper over the original Tomoe River paper, and that's because I had a big spill of ink the other day, but that's okay. I'm still using Tomoe River paper on top, and I am drawing out my Zentangle grid here. This is a Zentangle that I've done before, but I really like the Zentangles with the fine lines that really force me to try and be straight in these lines, but it doesn't always work out, and I'm okay with that. I love the base color of this ink, but I'm not a fan of the sheen, and the sheen kind of overtakes the shading here. So instead of shading, you get sheen. It's got great flow though out of the extra fine nib. So I gave the ink an 8 because I'm not a fan of the sheen, flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Le Bon 325 a 10. These two were actually a really good combo, and I keep forgetting how much I actually really like this Le Bon 325. It's really comfortable in the hand, but I also feel like it's such a classy looking pen. So that is my Le Bon 325 Snow with Birmingham Pen Co Root Cellar. The 9th pen and ink combo is Pen BBS number 342 in Matcha Ice Cream, and it is in my Zodiac Pen Co, the Cancer model, in the 3 Olives Martini. So I'm going to take a swatch of this with my Speedball bead nib, and I love seeing all of the inks on this grid here and being able to compare them. I love greens like this, but I feel like I already have too many, so I don't really need any more greens, but this one is a fun spring summery type of green. Reminds me a little bit of Pilot Oroshizuku Chiku Rin. You can see how lovely that looks in the different line widths there. And then my Zodiac Pen Co pen has an extra fine cursive smooth italic on there. So this is pen BBS number, what did I say, 342 Matcha. Oh, I love this nib. Ice cream. Lovely. So now I'm going to take a few drops of Pen BBS number 342 Matcha Ice Cream. I'm being really careful because this feels like it'll spill. Lucy's right under the desk. I know, puppy. I know you want to jump on the chair right now, but give me just a second. I wish you could see her under my desk, like she's giving me that look. Hold on, give me 2 seconds, because I gotta swirl these around with the sandwich bag before they dry. And I love the patterns that they make, because everyone is different. And I actually prefer putting less ink. One, it takes less time to dry, but two, I feel like I get more interesting blobs that way when I try to spread the ink around. There we go. Next thing I'm doing is swatching this ink with my Speedball B-nib on these 6 different papers. And no, I don't use these papers for daily journaling. I just like to see the effect of it. But also, I love the way that my ink journal looks with all of these different colors, these different papers, and seeing the effect. Like, who would have thought that paper would just produce such different effects and just be so cool? And now here on the Tomoe River paper. And out of all of these papers, somebody did ask me, like, which one is my favorite? And I mean, like, on a day-to-day basis, I use Tomoe River paper for my note-taking for work, for journaling, but for purposes of just experimenting, I really love the Onion Skin, the Yamamoto Bank, and the Bank. Those are my 3 favorite. Now, to actually grab the pen, and here we have this 3 Olives Martini. Bart held on to this blank for so long for me, and I'm so glad that he did. So Zodiac Pen Co, and this is the Cancer model in the 3 Olives Martini. I'm not going to write the whole thing, but this is an extra fine cursive smooth italic done by Kirk Spear. He did that at the PNW Pen Show, the Pacific Northwest Pen Show. So Pen BBS number 342 Matcha Ice Cream, which I think Henry would love. He really does love really sophisticated flavors. These two were actually a really lovely pairing, but the green in the matcha ice cream doesn't feel too different from greens that I already own, so it's probably not something that I will keep after this pairing. I gave the ink an 8 because it is beautiful. The flow a 10 because it flowed very well out of the extra fine cursive smooth italic, and I gave the comfort level of the pen an 8. I actually really loved the green in my 3 Olives Martini, and I think it matched really well with the Pen BBS number 342 Matcha Ice Cream. There's Lucy whining, but it's not a green that I think really differs from what I already have, so it's not one that I'm going to probably want to ink up again. I'll probably give this to a friend, but I love using this pen because it's one of those like really unique resins, but also I love the matte finish of it. So that's my Zodiac Pen Co Cancer model in the 3 Olives Martini with Pen BBS Matcha Ice Cream. Pen and ink combination for pen and ink combo number 10 is Birmingham Pen Co Waterfront Dusk, and I have it in my lovely Pelican M1000 in the Renaissance Brown. So let's do a swatch here. Now I know this Waterfront Dusk is not a brown, but I really wanted to use it. Sometimes you just, oh, see, like, look. We're gonna have to wait for that to dry. But it's just such a gorgeous color. And I mean, it's like that purpley brown. There's a little bit of brown in it, and that's why I like it. So then taking little bits, like it is falling off my Kakimori brass nib. So just a little bit there. Oh, I love that already. So pretty. Beautiful. Then I am going to close that before I spill it. And then just write the name. Birmingham. Oh, it's coming out of this pen so smoothly. Pen Co Waterfront Dusk. Oh, I love it. Now I'll add a few drops here in my journal. I'm going to be very sparing with this because I've just seen how wet it is. So very, well, I say very sparing, but like just little drops. That was a big drop, sorry. Little drop, well, maybe 2 here. And then there. All right, then take my sandwich baggie. I'll do this one first. Yeah, that was a big one. Oh, but look at how cool that looks. That is very cool. I'm gonna wipe some of the excess off here. And then let's see if I can get these 2 together without. Oh yeah, really cool. Sorry if you can hear my computer in the background here. Love that so much. I think it was actually a really good color to put with that Pelican M1000. I love this kind of wine purple color. Beautiful. I'm gonna add a few like little dots here, ooh, and maybe some there. Yeah, love it. Now using my Speedball B nib, and I'm not gonna try and put too much ink on the nib because I know this is already quite wet. Oh, look at that. I really love that base purple color. I'm excited to see what it's gonna look like on the onion skin and the Yamamoto bank and the bank paper. Because I mean, I do compare it to the Regalia and the Rhodia, but those ones don't interest me as much. Oh, I forgot to put something underneath here. Forgot to put in the pencil board or the grid so that I could actually see. I love that color so much. It's so pretty. So then, what is that? Yeah, I spilled a little bit of ink here from the other day. So the pen here is my Pelican M1000, and this had an extra fine nib, but it's now been ground down to a needle point, and the ink is Birmingham Pen Co Waterfront Dusk, and the 2 together are just so wet and juicy. So just drawing out my grid with my ruler from Michael's, and I don't do such a great job of getting it straight, but that's okay. And then drawing out the Zentangle. I love these ones from Barney Cacarni. I think they're just so cool to do and work through. So I'm excited to see these all done. This ink was a tad disappointing. It comes out so dark that I can't see the beautiful purple base, and that's why I fell in love with it. But I do love the way my Pelikan M1000 writes. So I gave the ink a 7, the flow a 9, because it was almost a tad bit too wet for me, and the comfort level of the M1000 a 10. I would love to write with this for longer, but I also feel like just the ink itself is just too dark for what I thought it was going to be. But again, I do love writing with that pen, so I'm glad that I was able to write with it for a couple of notes pages for work, as well as a couple of journaling entries. And then even in this Zentangle, you can't even see the really lovely, you know, color of the ink. It just kind of overpowers with a tiny bit of sheen here. So I maybe should have written with a less wet pen, but yeah, because I mean, like, even when I look at the sample, that's what the color of the swatch is on there, but it just comes out so dark. So I don't know, maybe I should have tried it in a different pen, but we'll see. So that's my Pelikan M1000 with Birmingham Pen Co Waterfront Dusk. All right, so those are, I guess, my pen and ink pairings number 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Again, I really like the pace that I'm going at with this 15 inks over 30 days. It gives me more time to appreciate each pen and ink pairing, but also I don't feel so rushed off my feet. And then I won't have 30 pens to clean out by the end of the month. So out of all of these, which one was my favorite pairing? That's hard to say because I really liked Troublemaker Sepia Hour, but then I also love how comfortable the Le Bon 325 Snow is and how comfortable the Model J is. So it's really a mix because there isn't, I mean, I did say that the Model J with the Coffee Monster was a 10 out of 10 out of 10. So this probably is my most favorite combo out of this month, but I love this ink and I love this pen. I actually love all of these pens. Who am I kidding? All right, but that is it for me for this episode of 15 inks over 30 days. I have another batch of 5 coming for the last 15 inks over 30 days for November. I think I'm going to continue this in December. What do you guys think? Because I do have a lot of ink samples that I need to get through, and I think doing something like this really helps me try them all and put them all in pens. All right, that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching and have yourselves a great day.